What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Streckbein, joined once again by my main man, Jacob Punturi. Find us on youtube.com/ All Steelers Talk or subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers had some massive news yesterday as Aaron Rodgers has finally signed and the Pittsburgh Steelers finally have their quarterback. I don't know what's bigger news, you being back from trip overseas that I won't lie to you, I've made sound as if you were the next Pirates of the Caribbean over the last couple of weeks,
Mhm,
or
mhm.
Pittsburgh Steelers finally ending what has been a long, tiresome, somewhat exciting at times journey trying to get Aaron Rodgers. I'll ask you a question I've been dying to ask you for weeks now. How you feeling, my friend? Good to see you. How was your trip? And I mean, was this the news? We all said it yesterday on the show. Was this the news that you saw when you landed? And was it what was that like? I want to know the moment of you landing and realizing what happened.
So, first off, great to see you. Happy to be back after a lengthy contract dispute between Noah and I have returned. No,
Was it
so pumped to be back. I am possibly a Pirate of the Caribbean, as Noah might have indicated. No one has seen me since Aaron Rodgers has signed with the Steelers, so, like, there's no way to tell what I was doing during those 2 weeks, but I'm feeling
potentially
great.
recruiting Aaron Rodgers?
I can either confirm nor deny where I was during those 2 weeks. But no, you know what? Let me tell you real quick. I'm on the plane. I'm sitting next to my wife, and she's sleeping. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna get a little like Wi-Fi, see if I can like get some work done, maybe read a little bit, you know. And the first message I see is from you. And with this
Beautiful.
incredible news. And so I hustle back because my mom and her husband are also on the same flight back to Pittsburgh. And
Oh,
I'm like, hey, great news. Aaron Rodgers, he's signed. And they were like, what? And I was like, yep, I'm finding out everything now, but like it's gonna be official for sure. And so I we land and I am just pretty overjoyed with the news that Aaron Rodgers is gonna be a Pittsburgh Steeler and that this drama is finally coming to an end for now, and the next chapter of it will begin. So I am pumped and I'm happy to be back, and what a perfect topic to return to, you know?
I was gonna say it was almost perfect timing. Like that was the
Mhm.
first thing I said to Jillian, my wife, yesterday was I was like, man, dude, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm pretty pumped that I don't have to talk about this by myself tomorrow. This
Sure.
is pretty. It was immaculate timing. So on your end, it couldn't have been any better. That
Yeah.
was, I mean, to find that out on a plane, pretty much. You should have just went row to row, and should have been like, hey, sources say Aaron Rodgers signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sources say, and then just looked incredible when you guys landed, and everybody's like,
Yeah.
dude, did you know that who is that guy?
Who is
Who's
that
the
guy?
guy that is that Adam
Gone.
Schefter on our flight right here? That's what should have done. Um, but we were literally packing to leave. Truck was ready to go. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna knock out the pod real fast, talk to everybody, we're gonna have a good time, and then we'll go. I look at my phone. I just got off the phone. My phone's blowing up in my ear. I look at it and I got 40 texts. Rodgers signing. Rodgers signing. I was like, oh, what is happening right now? Best timing ever. Shout out to Aaron Rodgers.
Shout out.
Hilarious that he timed it as perfectly as he did because we got 2 weeks of OTAs. He got 2 weeks of a little journey through Malibu and the podcast scene, and now he's coming back. What is your reaction? You have been through this all. We've all been through this all. We knew the whole time it was very likely that it was going to happen. I mean, me and you have spoken off camera a number of times, just kind of going through the details and what we have been hearing and everything else. And it didn't ever really feel as if it was not going to happen. But
Mhm.
when it's 3 months of waiting, your mind plays tricks on you. It finally happens. What is your reaction to Rodgers signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers? Finally signing with the Pittsburgh
Finally.
Steelers.
Truly, and I feel like I have been so critical because of the wait for so long, but now that he's here and now that he's going to be QB1, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens. I am pretty sure that this is an upgrade over what the current quarterback situation was in Pittsburgh, but beyond that, I am even more certain that the Steelers believe that. So I
Yeah.
am pumped. I think, now that he's going to be here, he's going to be here for mini camp. He's going to be here for training camp. That's exactly what we were hoping for, just to get him. I am eager to see him with his teammates, to see him getting involved and just sort of seeing that, especially that connection with him and DK Metcalf just
Yes.
early, sustaining it. That is the number one thing I'm excited about for sure. But yeah, I'm pumped. I think this is a great move, and it gives them a much better chance of winning a playoff game for the first time in 7 years, 8 years.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. I think the notion the entire time, at least coming from me, was that the Pittsburgh Steelers' best opportunity is Aaron Rodgers. You can't guarantee anything, and coming
Mhm.
off a 5-win season with the Jets doesn't look great. And you have to be realistic about things, but you do
Mhm.
have to look at it and say, look at the Jets are the Browns. They're parallel to the Browns. Nobody's going to New York saying, I'm gonna win a Super Bowl. That's what I'm gonna do. Justin Fields signed there. The first thing I said was, man, I feel bad. Because I like Justin Fields. And
Right.
I can't you have to take some away without judging, if that makes sense. I
Mhm.
don't blame Aaron Rodgers for firing his head coach and his offensive coordinator and his GM, or Mike Williams not working out there, just like he didn't work out
Mhm.
in Pittsburgh for the rest of the season, which maybe means that it was a little bit of Mike Williams. I just look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and say your ceiling with Rodgers might be higher. Nothing's guaranteed in the NFL. Nothing's guaranteed right now with Rodgers, who's 41 years old, but you're putting your eggs in a basket with 4 NFL MVPs. That's a Super Bowl ring. Like, that's a good basket to toss your eggs in for one final
Yep.
season, because the Pittsburgh Steelers plan still remains 2026. They're going to get a quarterback. They're going to get a rookie first round, no more wasting time quarterback. Right
Mhm.
now, they just need somebody to keep the waves moving, the thoughts of winning a championship alive. Aaron Rodgers, he does bring that. He does bring that. The level of certainty is almost uncalled for, because
Mhm.
nothing in the NFL, unless you're Patrick Mahomes, feels certain that you're going to get a shot at a Super Bowl.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're just looking at best option. I think Aaron Rodgers is that best option. Now he's flying to Pittsburgh today.
Mhm.
He'll take a physical this morning, most likely, and then sign a deal. 1 year, I've heard it's under $20 million. Don't know the exact financials of it. I would imagine that there are incentives that get it to about $20 million this season. I have no issue with 20 million bucks for Aaron Rodgers. Two-part question here for you.
Mhm.
The price tag under 20, I'd guess it's somewhere around 12 to 15 million dollars, somewhere in that ballpark. It's going to be more than the 10 M's that he mentioned on the Pat McAfee show, but I don't expect it to
Agreed.
be a ton more than the 10 M's that he's looking for.
Mhm.
uh, Price tag 12 to 15 million dollars, not terrible. Your thoughts on that? And secondly, I mean, we got to talk about Mason Rudolph at some point. You have to talk about if this is a real quarterback competition, if the Steelers are just pushing him to the side officially. What is your expectation to what happens? Rodgers going to show up on Tuesday. Mason's been taking first team reps for 2 weeks now.
Mhm.
Looked pretty good during it, but it's OTAs, it's helmet and shorts. Do you
Mhm.
expect any type of quarterback competition in Pittsburgh, real or just a pole position competition like last year at all? And are you cool with the price tag?
Yeah. All right. So price tag first. Yeah, I think anything under $30 million for Aaron Rodgers would be reasonable, especially given the Steelers cap situation, because it is so flexible. So yeah, I could see it being, a base salary of probably no more than $15 million, but I would anticipate, like you already mentioned, there being a boatload of incentives, and because if he achieves it, it's all worth it. But I might as well, if I was Omar Khan, I would be just ladling incentive after incentive to try and pad out and potentially earn him more money. So yeah, I'm great with the price tag. I think overall your quarterback, the depth chart, you have what, 35 million total invested into it for the year, potentially at
Yeah.
most. with all, with him, Rudolph, and Howard. So yeah, I think either way, you're set up in a great position. The lower your quarterback money allocated is, and the more that's surrounding it, I think you have a better chance of winning as well. So yeah, I love that. The second part of your question here, the quarterback competition is done. It will be pole position is the most generous way of putting it. But Aaron Rodgers is going to be the starting quarterback, and there won't be any competition unless he is injured, or unless he has taken the proverbial falling off a cliff of his talents, which of course happens to everyone at some point. But yeah, barring that or some sort of massive injury or something like that, this competition closes the minute that ink hits the contract.
I agree. Aaron Rodgers isn't coming to Pittsburgh. Mike Tomlin hasn't been waiting 3 months to sign a guy who's going to walk in here and compete for a starting job. That's just not. If this was in March, okay, maybe Mike Tomlin at the owners meeting tosses out a little, we'll see what happens, but it's too early to name a starting quarterback. Maybe that's the case. It's June. The next time Mike Tomlin talks will be on Tuesday. And he's going to say, Aaron Rodgers is our guy. He's not going to say those exact words, but he's going to allude to it by saying something along the lines of, yeah, when you have a 4-time MVP and a Super Bowl champion, a guy who's been here, you got to see what you have in that guy. Yeah, obviously, you didn't sign a 41-year-old quarterback, wait 3 months for him to say potential backup to Mason Rudolph. I mean, I just don't. I feel bad for Mason, but at the same time, it's just not. It wasn't in the Steelers' ballpark at all to have a real quarterback competition once Rodgers shows up. The next part of this is the wide receiver. Everybody wants to talk about where you go from here. Mike Florio guaranteed yesterday that Allen Lazard was coming to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've heard Gabe Davis's meeting went, but the injury issues are very much so there. And the Steelers weren't willing to take a shot on that, which probably means his physicals didn't turn out great. And the team doctors probably had some red flags there. He continues to work his way through free agency tour, I guess. The Steelers are still looking for a wide receiver 2 option. Lazard's name is there. Now that it's real, it feels real. Is that the guy that tops the list for you now that Rodgers is actually here? When we're talking about this a month ago, you're talking about it going, yeah, if the Steelers trade for him now because they're looking at Chris Olave, they're calling about Trey Palmer, Jonnu Smith, the whole nine, you're going, yeah, all right, but you're not catering to anybody. Now you have a quarterback. Do you cater to that quarterback? And do you think Allen Lazard becomes that top target for Pittsburgh?
Yes. I mean, you absolutely have to cater to Aaron Rodgers, whether you like it or not, whether you are in favor of that being the approach. That is what you have to do. You have to give this man everything he needs to be comfortable and in a place to succeed, because you're hanging your entire season on him. So why would you not be trying to do, everything you can to give him the best season possible? So yeah, I think Allen Lazard is, now the number 1 option, the most likely option to arrive in Pittsburgh. I think for Gabe Davis, the telling part is I think when the Steelers bring someone in for a visit later in the offseason and they leave without a contract, they're not going to get one. So I don't see Gabe Davis, I think for him, leaving the building without anything really encouraging coming out, that tells me the Steelers are going to pass. So that even more so puts Allen Lazard at the top of my list. Can I take you on a quick little journey, Noah? Do you mind?
Oh, I love a journey. Yes.
So after, I'm doing my deep dive last night.
Fresh off a plane from Italy.
Do you know the last time, and maybe you talked about this in the past couple of weeks, do you know the last time Aaron Rodgers won a playoff game? Do you have the exact one in your mind? I have the answer here if you don't.
No, I don't think I do.
Cool. It's all good. The last time he won a playoff game was more recently than the Steelers, just for everyone to know. It was in the 2021 playoffs. They beat the LA Rams. Aaron Rodgers had a bit of a monster game, but there was one wide receiver who had a particularly monster game, Mr. Allen Lazard, hauled in 4 passes for 96 yards and a tutty. Whoa. So I think the Steelers might have keyed in on that game. I think that might be something they've looked at a lot. And I think that if they're hoping to win a playoff game, multiple playoff games, I think they see that connection in, let's call it clutch time maybe, or in those bigger moments, that Aaron Rodgers and Alan Lazard might be the pairing that gives them just a better shot. And then, you know, potentially you'd have DK Metcalf and Alan Lazard. That gives me a lot of encouragement and optimism about how the Steelers offense could perform, especially their passing offense.
I agree.
So, I mean, yeah, what do you make of that?
I like it, to be honest. My thing on Alan Lazard is boring, very boring.
Mhm.
Any wide receiver connected to Aaron Rodgers outside of Devontae Adams, who isn't going to come from LA, is
Right.
boring. It doesn't really, in my eyes, give you anything that gets you real excited. But I'll say
Mhm.
this, like, if Alan Lazard were to come to Pittsburgh, okay, and Calvin Austin remained the guy that they're looking at as wide receiver 2, and Roman Wilson continued to develop, and Robert Woods played a role and was better than a Van Jefferson or an Allen Robinson, and then you get an Alan Lazard who's coming off of 6 touchdowns, I think 550, maybe 600 yards last season in 12 games. Not terrible. Definitely not a terrible season for a guy playing with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it's just you need a wide receiver 2 somehow. And if you're not going to have an elite wide receiver 2, figure something out. I don't think they're going to end up with the Terry McLaurin. Everybody keeps tossing that name out there, but I just think he's too expensive. Chris Olave makes a lot of sense, and he would be head and shoulders above anybody else as the top target. But at the same time, you have to look at a Chris Olave and be realistic that right now the Saints don't want to give him up. I think that changes come training camp, but if the Steelers are ready to move now, I don't think he's on the table. Lazard, just like many of these other names, are just who could come in here, give you 600-700 yards, and then hope Calvin Austin gives you 700-800 yards, and Roman Wilson gives you 500-600 yards, and Robert Woods gives you 500-600 yards, and then you have a pretty good receiving game because DK's got to be 1,200 plus. But if everybody's catching 4 or 5 touchdowns, I mean, that's a good year receiving wise. Pat Freiermuth, 700 yards. At that point, you have the guys. And if the Steelers are comfortable with that, I still think it's an upgrade over last season. Because last season, the Steelers were looking at it where this year, if it ends up being Alan Lazard, the Steelers are looking at DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson. This is guessing everybody stays healthy. DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, Robert Woods, Alan Lazard. Last year it was George Pickens, Calvin Austin, Van Jefferson, Ben Skoranek. It was not great. It was as bad as it got, actually. This is a massive upgrade just as a whole. And I while you're still missing that number 2 guy, you have the pieces there to make a successful receiving core. And if Alan Lazard's the guy, I mean, him and Rodgers has that connection. I think the bigger plus with Alan Lazard is more so just like bringing in a Scotty Miller, I guess Cordero Patterson, but that I don't put him in the same boat. A Michael Pruitt last year, guys who are comfortable and familiar with Arthur Smith's offense. This is Alan Lazard's a guy who's comfortable with Aaron Rodgers. So he could give Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson the keys to working with Aaron Rodgers, allow them to learn from him on how to work with the quarterback, and I think that plays a role. So in my head, it's not the worst addition. I don't think it's the best. I think anybody who's sitting around saying, this is a guy that the Steelers have to go get, you're over exaggerating. But if you're not sold on a true number 2 somewhere, if you're not willing to sell the house and go get a guy like Chris Olave or Terry McLaurin or whoever, I mean, Alan Lazard is probably cheap and very much so okay for an option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I think we have some news. The Pittsburgh Steelers have called reportedly for Kyle Pitts, who could be an option, who could definitely be an option. Your thoughts on that?
Now there's your big home run, for a quote unquote number 2 receiving option or something like that. I know is a tight end, but here's the thing. You mentioned boring in there, and I think you kind of meant it critically, if I could assume your intention there. But like, I
Yeah.
think boring at the number 2 wide receiver spot is going to be what works best for the Steelers this year. I think if the goal is to just get the most talented number 2 wide receiver, the Alan Lazard obviously is not the choice. You have to put all your eggs in the basket of a Chris Olave or something like that. But I think they need the safer, boring option at the number 2 wide receiver so that Calvin Austin can flourish a little bit, so that Pat Fryermuth can flourish a little bit, so that DK Metcalf can eat every single week. And I
Oh yeah.
think if they are splitting targets like that, I think we're setting up another sort of recipe for disaster where the passing attack doesn't feature the superstar wide receiver enough, when we're in the same situation of 2024 all over again of like, how do we incorporate this incredibly talented top wide receiver into the offense more? So I think, if we go the safe option at wide receiver, maybe bring in the Alan Lazard, it could set up, a potential for Kyle Pitts. Like that would be a dream home run swing for the Steelers to bring him in and match him up with Pat Fryermuth. I mean, it's a pretty deadly tight end combination. So yeah, I mean, you got to make the calls, or maybe there's just like a lot of like agent moves happening where like people are putting out how many calls are coming out of certain people, like the Jonnu Smith stuff. But you got to make the calls. I
You got to
would
make the
give up
calls.
a good bit for Kyle Pitts. I don't know about you, but I would be
Oh,
ready to give up a good bit for him.
what's a good bit? Give me a draft pick.
Um, I mean, second rounder easily. I think I could be.
Really?
Yeah, that's 100%.
Okay.
100%. I think if your goal is to win a Super Bowl and you think someone like a Kyle Pitts who has unreal athleticism can play anywhere on the line, you can shift him out wide, you can bring him in tight. Doesn't really matter. He would be sort of a Arthur Smith's dream, alongside Fryermuth. So I think
Yeah.
if you're getting that player that you feel is the ideal complement to your quarterback and offensive system, you want to win a championship, you got to give up, you got to spend, to get big, I guess, in this situation. So I think you'd have to be ready to part with some serious assets. Like, so second round pick, I'd be okay with.
Okay. I don't know if I'd be in a second round pick. I like your notion though. Like I
Mhm.
agree with I'd be all in on a Kyle Pitts. I think that makes a lot of sense. I have heard look at the first thing I was told and I said it on the show about a week ago. You were, sipping wine
Cruising
somewhere.
the seas.
Yeah, you were having a great time somewhere. And when the Jonnu Smith came out, the first thing I was told was there's a more than likely chance that if they were going to get a tight end, it'd be Kyle Pitts over Jonnu Smith, because it just makes more sense. And I agree with it. It does make more sense. Kyle Pitts isn't going to be expensive. I mean, he's expensive this year, but I don't think long term he's going to be that expensive. He comes to an offense where he's the tight end too, and the Steelers want tight ends. So I agree with that. I don't know if I'd give up a second round pick. I think I'd give up a third round pick and consider it for Kyle Pitts if the right move was there, if you were confident in your offense to use 3 tight ends that consistently. I mean, the injury that he's dealing with right now plays a little bit of a role in that, but I think it works in the Steelers' favor, to be honest, where it's like, yeah, well, he's not 100% healthy, so maybe we get a little bit of a discount. He's got
What is the injury right now?
it's some foot thing, I'm pretty sure. It's a foot or a hand. It's one of the body parts that you use to walk or feel things, definitely.
And that was sustained like immediately in mini camp or something like that, I'm assuming.
I think he came into OTAs with
Oh,
it. I'm
word.
pretty sure.
Okay.
Not 100% on that one. I haven't been paying attention to the Falcons too much, but he is dealing with something. I think that's going to work in their favor. I'm about Kyle Pitts. I think Kyle Pitts is fine. I'll say this though, in the same conversation, the Steelers, while targeting tight ends or looking at tight ends, I don't want to say targeting, but looking at tight ends, they're not going after a tight end to not go after a wide receiver. I expect both things to be filled. Like the Steelers have their eyes on a wide receiver and a tight end. And if they're comfortable with Kyle Pitts, I mean, that's what they're doing, is they're essentially saying, okay, let's just get as many pieces as possible in case Darnell Washington isn't a good tight end too, in case Connor Hayward isn't the guy we need him to be and needs to play fullback. Let's go get somebody in case this is a tight end heavy offense, which is what Arthur Smith wants to make it. So I agree with that. I'm all on board with it. I don't think it rules out a wide receiver And I wouldn't be surprised if they made 2 trades. Now, again, none of this can happen right now with their cap space, but I do expect, when TJ gets signed, that's going to free up a lot of money. And they have other ways to free up some money, not a ton, but I do think that the upside's there. And the Steelers, I mean, Rappaport said it the other day, and I went off a little bit he said the Steelers are loading up for one last run. And I said, the Steelers, this isn't one last run, but they sure as hell are putting all their eggs in a basket to say, let's see how good this team could be in 2025. We're not wasting any more time. And I don't mind that. I don't mind that idea. I don't know if I'd give up a second, but I do like Kyle Pitts. And I like Kyle Pitts more than Jonnu Smith all week, every single day of the week. I like Kyle Pitts over Jonnu Smith. He's, in my eyes, the right move. All right. Last question here. Latrobe is a month and a half away, 24th. They report on the 23rd. We'll probably be up there. Do you expect, what's your reaction to Aaron Rodgers? What's the fan base's reaction to Aaron Rodgers when he shows up?
I think it's going to be pretty crazy out at St. Vincent's whenever Aaron Rodgers shows up. I anticipate it being pretty, let's face it, Steelers Nation shows up and just puts on the most enthusiastic crowd for a training camp in the entire NFL. Everyone loves being there. It is just that clean slate, that optimism coming into the new year is incredible. So I think fans are going to be, eager to embrace him at training camp and seeing him for the first time. And I think it's just all, Steelers fans, we love to be critical. We love to invest so much. We love to, we all have very passionate opinions about how the team should be moving forward and disagree about a lot of it. But, when the season starts, the Steelers Nation shows up. So I think it's going to be a pretty fun scene. That first open practice is going to be, wow, it's going to feel like a game.
Yeah, I agree. I wrote a story today while you were enjoying a nice flight news break and running back to your parents. Last night, I was driving through Pennsylvania, and I don't know if anybody on this chat right now lives in the middle of Pennsylvania. The middle of Pennsylvania is not a real place. That's what I'm from Scranton. I live in Pittsburgh. You got to drive right through the whole thing. And it is it could be 75 and sunny in both spots, Scranton and Pittsburgh, and be a full-blown tornado in the middle of Pennsylvania. That is what last night was. It was so chaotic that me and my wife were like, all right, dude, it's going to take us 7 hours to get home. People were at a dead stop. That's how crazy the rain was. I was like, we're just going to hang out. We're in Belafonte. We'll get a hotel. And I'm sitting there typing away. Jillian's passed out, and my brain is just going on and on about how Aaron Rodgers timed this perfect, because he's going to show up on Tuesday. He gets 3 days to calm everybody's nerves about the whole situation. And then by the time Latrobe comes around, nobody cares anymore. At this point, it's fine. The Steelers have their quarterback. They've had their quarterback for 2 months by the time he shows up to Latrobe. I think that, where you look today, where we stand today, chaotic. People are still a little butthurt about the situation, and I get it, and I agree with it. I definitely agree with it. It will ease, and it's enough time to ease. I agree with you. I think it's going to be fine. Chris here too. Noah, my family raised in Boiling Springs, PA, out near Carlson.
Wow.
It exists.
Wow.
And I'll tell you it does, but I'm sure, my friend, that you have experienced the craziest weather in the world. The world.
Carlisle is real. I've been there. I can confirm that.
It is. Last night I was sitting in a rest stop in Snowshoe for an hour, just eating pretzels. I was like, all right, any day now, pal, any day people are going to start driving again. This is awesome. All right. That's everything on our agenda. I want to start answering everybody's questions, so toss them in the chat. But first, we got a quick word from our boys over at Factor. Summer is here. More sun, more light, more time to do all the things that make summer so special. And the number one thing you don't want to be doing all summer, spending hours cooking inside. That's where Factor comes in. Factor's chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals are ready in just 2 minutes, taking the hassle out of eating well. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat, perfect for any active lifestyle over summer and beyond. With 45 weekly menu options, you can pick gourmet meals that fit your summer gains and goals. Choose from options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto, and more. Factor powers your day sun up to sundown. With nutritious breakfasts, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts, Factor has your whole day covered. Enjoy more this summer. Get Factor if you want all the flavor and none of the fuss. As I was sitting there, you want to know what I was thinking? Man, I'm starving, and I drank all my Factor juices. Never fun. Never fun. Get started at factormeals.com/allsteelerstalk50 off and use code allsteelerstalk50 off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code allsteelerstalk50 off at factormeals.com/allsteelerstalk50 off for 50% off plus free shipping. Factormeals.com/allsteelerstalk50 off. All right. With that said, let's dive into your questions. If you got them, toss them in the chat. Shout out to our members. Shout out to our super chatters. Shout out to Knock, my friend, who has gifted 5, 10, 15, 25 All Steelers Talk memberships today.
Wow.
Insane. My man, I owe you a steak dinner at some point. For what you are doing to our AST community. Shout out, my man. And then just a simple run-of-the-mill Noah. What's up? Knock, can't tell you how much I appreciate you, my friend, for real. Household name in the Strackbine house is good old Knock on All Steelers Talk. Shout out. Shout out. All right. Let's keep it trucking here. Tim, SN, stop moping and Steelers Nation, sorry. Stop moping and get ready for an exciting season. Remember when we were the 6th seed in the playoffs and everyone wrote us off? Embrace the new team and get ready to bleed black and gold. I love it. And again, I think it goes back to when Rodgers signed. It's the perfect time that when Latrobe shows up, it's just time to get excited. The Steelers are here. They've made moves. They're probably going to make more. This team is going to look better than it did a year ago.
Yep.
I just fully embrace the positivity right now. I just don't think that the Steelers signed a quarterback. Like it's huge. The answer has been given to us. We finally get it. Maybe it doesn't work out, but guess what?
Sure.
Maybe it doesn't work out for 31 teams this season because it's not going to work out for 31 teams this season. But I have a hard time believing the Pittsburgh Steelers lose less than 9 games in a year. And that gives you plenty of reasons to say there's a chance. There's a chance. It doesn't have to be the biggest chance, but there's a chance. Shout out to.
There's so much time to be negative. There's so much season left to be unimpressed. Let's, give me a week.
Give me a week. Give me a month. Give me a month. A month looking
bit.
good. If Aaron Rodgers shows up in Latrobe and the fans get to be there and he looks terrible, we'll talk about it then. But for right now, 4-time MVP is the Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback. That ain't bad. Chris, Noah, I think with the money we have, it would be beneficial to front load a new contract for TJ Watt that will lessen the cap in the coming years. So I disagree with this one because the Steelers don't have money right now. They had about $20 million left. About 12 to 15 of that maybe is going to go to Aaron Rodgers. You're going to have to save. You usually try to save 10 for like free agent transactions, things that you need to do during the season just in case. And then when TJ signs, you're going to create cap space by signing his first year into a signing bonus, which means that you'll create about $20 million more, give or take. And with that, you'll be able to do things like go get an Alan Lazard or Kyle Pitts or whoever. But that is when you are going to have to, that's where you're going to have to spend your money. Now, it works out in the Steelers' favor because they have about $100 and some million available next season. And obviously, TJ is going to take up a massive chunk of that. But the Steelers won't have a quarterback contract for a couple of years. So they could do things like backload contracts and make the most out of things. And when TJ's all said and done in the next couple of years, you want to know what you do. You say, okay, TJ, we're going to extend you for 1 year and we're going to turn your current contract into a signing bonus, which means that he's going to make $45 million in a season and get it all in one paycheck, which is wild. And then it's going to lower his cap hit once again. So I just think the way the Steelers are structured, they can space out TJ and use it to their advantage this year. If they were a full roster right now, I'd agree. I think front load it and who cares? But the Steelers don't have too much money to be handing out right now. You agree, disagree?
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, I think their hands are tied, and I think the explainer was crisp there from you. But yeah, I mean, they gotta just figure out this Watt contract first, and then that'll give them the flexibility they need. But I also will posit that that doesn't make me feel any less confident about a deal getting done for Watt, or that the Steelers will have some cap space to go out and acquire another weapon for Aaron Rodgers in time for the 2025 regular season. So yeah, some stuff to do, some moves to make, some puzzle pieces to move around. But yeah, I front loading today wouldn't work.
I agree. I agree. All right, Pittsburgh Hornets has a couple here. How much control should Rodgers have of the offense? I think little control, but more than Russ had. You know, see where Aaron Rodgers is in the part of his career where you have to be able to expect him to be able to change plays at the line of scrimmage. He could see the field better than anybody out there. You should be able to let him use that. Rodgers or Russ and Arthur Smith didn't really like it because Russ was looking to change plays all the time. I don't think Rodgers should be able to change plays all the time, but I also hope that Rodgers and Arthur Smith have a better working relationship to where the offense is designed for Rodgers, which is going to help if Rodgers is there at training camp and doesn't push a sled and doesn't get hurt. If Arthur Smith can design an offense for Aaron Rodgers throughout the summer and then go from there, I don't think you have as many issues. And I think Rodgers has a huge say in the offense without actually having to go out there and change all the plays all the time.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I mean, I think the biggest thing that's going to dictate this, or maybe a factor that's going to dictate a lot of this, is like how often is Aaron Rodgers going to get sacked? And I think, another part of my deep dive last night was comparing how many times he was sacked last year, which was, I have a note here. He was sacked 40 times last year in 17 games.
That's
Steelers
crazy.
quarterbacks were sacked 49 times over the season last year, if my tally was correct, and someone can check me on that for sure. But yeah, so I think that you want to give him control over the offense as much more than Russell Wilson had last year, or at least you want to encourage him to have that freedom more than Russell Wilson was encouraged to have that freedom to call things at the line. Because again, if we are acknowledging that he is a 4-time MVP, whenever our, two-time Super Bowl winning quarterback Ben Roethlisberger was at the helm those final years, he had, complete freedom, and he was very eager to, make checks and change the plays when he saw something that he didn't like at the line. And I think if we are confident that Rodgers can still do that, have to see it on the field, sure. But if he can, just let him do it, especially if Arthur Smith's offense is already sort of structured around him and they're keeping him on his feet, then yeah, let him do it. Don't give him complete, I don't want pure Joker chaos here, but give him some trust.
I agree. And Arthur Smith is known around the league, well respected around the league as a guy who could work well with his personnel and create different types of offenses. I would imagine him and Rodgers have enough time right now to make that work, and I would imagine Arthur Smith is designing an offense currently to fit Rodgers' needs. And when Rodgers gets here on Tuesday, they're going to have some good conversations if they haven't had those conversations already. All right, another one here from Pittsburgh Hornets. Noah, have you written your speech? Jake, you haven't been part of this, but give a best man speech tomorrow. And Pittsburgh Hornets, no, I have not. Haven't even started it, to be honest with you. But you know what they say? Still got 24 hours. That's what they say.
Just speak from the heart, man. It's your brother. You got the words in there. Just let it come out when the time's right.
I'll figure it out. So right now I have, all right, I'll give everybody a sneak peek here. Hope nobody's there. Right now I have, this is the intro. You ready? Ready? What's up, everybody? I'm Noah. For those of you guys who don't know me, I'm Hunter's older, better looking brother. That's all I got.
That's great.
That's a start right there.
Right?
Right? Yep. I'm already in. We'll be all right. Cody Silva, just heard Jerry Dulac on Sirius XM say that they will probably keep Warren for a year and let him walk, and Caleb will be the number one unless Warren has a 1,600-yard season. Thoughts? I agree. I don't look at Jaylen Warren as this team's long-term plan right now, but I do think a lot of it depends on this season. Like they're predicting it, they're forecasting a year ahead, and a year ahead they could say Jaylen Warren's probably going to be worth $7, $8, $9 million in a year. and Caleb Johnson's going to be their starting running back, so they're not going to pay that much money. Now, if Jalen's worth $5 million next year, next free agency, all right, they're probably going to keep him, and then Caleb will be their guy. But either way, the Steelers will have 2 running backs next year. Jalen rushing for 1,600 yards is not likely, but I would certainly not rule it out. Like, I think Jalen's going to be a stud, and I think people are excited about Caleb and somehow undermining the capabilities of Jalen. I think Jalen's a stud, and I think he's got, again, 1,600 yards is ridiculous, but I think it's possible.
Yeah. I think 1,600 yards is probably a bit, not a bit. I find that to be too lofty. I think you're probably a little higher on Warren than I am. And I think I'm probably a little bit higher on Caleb Johnson than you are still. I feel very confident in him already. Like, I am eager to see it on the field. And I think the Steelers have the same plans for Caleb Johnson to be the bell cow back in 2026 and for those next couple of years. And so, Jalen Warren will just kind of have to fall into place with the salary cap and go from there. Of course, there's always the chance that he could just go off. And if he commands the ball, Jalen Warren, then great. Keep feeding him. There were so many times throughout his tenure. There have been so many times where he has just looked so dominant and so effective in so many different ways, passing and taking the ball as a handoff. So I'm all for the competition, and I'm all for whoever has the hot hand, let's ride it. But I think it makes the most sense for Jalen Warren to play this year, eventually give way to Caleb Johnson, and then he becomes the number 1 starter, moving forward.
I agree. Rec 7 here. Wide receiver trade options nobody is thinking of. That's a great question. A real difficult one, too. People are talking about McMillan out of Tampa Bay.
Sure.
Oh, my gosh. This is a real difficult one. I would say Christian Watson's a sleeper. I think he's going to emerge as an option at some point to somebody. I just think that Green Bay has too many wide receivers, and they're going to look at Watson as a guy who's got injury troubles and is near the end of, I think he just signed a small extension. So maybe he's a name to watch. This is tough. This is real tough. I don't know if I have many names out there that I think will be available. Cortland Sutton's going to sneak up again at some point. That's a guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who I have.
The only other name I see, I pulled up my little list here from a little bit ago, and I don't think it's possible, but it would intrigue me the most is Juwan Jennings. But I don't know if anything's happened injury-wise in San Francisco. I've not seen anything over the past couple of weeks, obviously. But, I mean, in terms of talented guys that would feel like a number 2 wide receiver, you get a guy like Juwan Jennings, you feel pretty good about that.
Yeah. I think Juwan Jennings is there. I just had another one. And it's totally Quentin Johnston out of LA. Look for his name.
Oh, if they could swing that, yes.
I think that's a name that people will start floating around because they have Ladd McConkey. They just added Trey Harris in this year's draft. I could see him being a guy that they're ready to move on from cheap.
Right.
Get rid of him now while he's still got some value. And then Treylon Burks is going to be the other one. 100%.
But he's got to get cut from.
He's terrible. He's not good.
Give up anything for him.
Yeah, but if we're talking under the radar options, it's not anybody good. It's not anybody. Right now, there are nobody good.
Someone from the Colts. I could see
just Josh. Anybody from the Colts.
I would like Josh Downs if I had my pick.
No chance.
He's
going to be the future. No chance.
I think Michael Pittman's the only one worth salt.
Yeah. I think Michael Pittman's got a better opportunity to get traded before.
Sure.
Josh Downs is a stud. Absolute stud.
Yeah.
Nate Moore, does Aaron Rodgers retire after the season with the Steelers? I would imagine he retires in Green Bay, but I do expect him to retire after the season. I just feel like it's a one and done. He's been contemplating this for a couple of years now. Send it off after this year, right? You feeling something different?
No, I think he's going to retire after this year. Maybe he signs like a 1-day contract to actually, is that what you meant?
Yeah. Doesn't play a season.
I was like, whoa, he's going to play in 26 in Green Bay. That would be cool. The return
would be for sure.
But I think he's going to retire. And I think 100% certain, he's going to play 1 year only for the Steelers.
Yeah, me too. Unless they make it to the Super Bowl and lose, Rodgers is the guy.
Yeah.
All right. Keeping it trucking here. Danny, When did Ryan Clark turn into such a diva? I must have missed something here. I don't know, but I'll say this. Ryan Clark's going to talk so much smack this year and then this offseason, and then he's going to show up in training camp in Latrobe in a month and act as if everything's totally fine, and that he loves the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah. The last thing I saw was the stuff with like Robert Griffin.
Him and RG3 going back and forth,
Yeah.
which is just like it was, if you watch that cycle of videos, it was just passive aggressive messages back and forth with nobody apologizing, but everybody saying that they're apologizing. It was classic online drama. Yeah. Nate Moore, once again, amongst all the Aaron Rodgers drama, George Pickens finding another wide receiver, etc. Has this been the wildest Steelers offseason that you have covered? I will say yes. I showed up right after AB left, so never got to do the AB offseason, which is a bummer, man. Like, I wish that I got to. I'm not going to act like I don't know AB like that. Nobody does, but I'm not going to act like I've never spoken to AB.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get the midst of it. I wish I would have got a year of AB. This is by far, without question, the most dramatic offseason I've been a part of in Pittsburgh. And that includes last year was dramatic. Russell Wilson shows up, says, "Oh, I'm so excited to be here." Doesn't mention Kenny Pickett in a press conference. An hour and a half later, he's traded to Philadelphia. Like, George Pickens is going off like everybody. I've been through some drama, and this one tops the list for sure. This one tops the list, I would say.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Yeah, this is an awesome offseason. Pittsburgh Hornets, once again, how much does Khan give for Allen Lazard, and what is the most or least for a trade? What's the best and worst case scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers when it comes to Allen Lazard trade compensation wise?
Best case scenario is a conditional 7th round pick that is conditional upon 50 receptions or something, I guess. But if they give up anything more than a 5th round pick, I think it's a bad trade. I think you have to do a 5th or a 6th round pick for this to make any sort of sense. But if they give up a 4th round pick, I'm going to blast that trade. Even though I like the player and I like the fit, that is someone I would not feel comfortable breaking the bank spending on.
I agree.
Compared to Kyle Pitts or something like that.
Yeah, I'm 5th round pick, maybe, but I think a 6th round pick and swap 6th or something, 6th and then a swap of a 7th, whatever you got to do. I don't care, but I'm not giving up more than a 5th round pick. I don't think I'm giving up a 5th round pick for a number of these guys that we've mentioned. Chris Olave, Terry McLaurin, Kyle Pitts, different story, but Jonnu Smith, I guess, but
maybe
any of these lower end guys, 5th round pick, and I'm not going any higher. No chance.
Agreed.
Broderick Jones, good luck with the best man speech. Is this the brother that sent you into the bedpost, resulting in a chipped tooth? It is, my friend. It is. And I'm not bringing that up in the speech, although I am thankful because my smile is looking way better nowadays than it would have been if, didn't have a chipped tooth that decided to fall out. Think of all the I know that you guys live on a different timeline than me, but I live on the chipped tooth timeline right now. And this tooth randomly fell out on a golf course 3 months ago, almost to the day 3 months ago. That's how long ago it's been. And I had to get it fixed by a sketchy Sunday dentist that I definitely thought was going to kill me because I thought Aaron Rodgers was signing on Monday of 3 months ago. So we have lived many lives. I've had like four different teeth since then, since this entire Aaron Rodgers thing has gone through. I've had half faked chipped tooth. I've had a replacement to the fake chipped tooth. I've had the fake crown, and then I've had the real crown. It's been a journey, my friend. It's been a journey.
The dental journey for Noah has been epic. Like Odysseus trying to come home.
That's exactly what it is.
Tooth back.
Just trying to get my tooth back before Aaron Rodgers signs. Shout out to A-Rod. Shout out to A-Rod. Miguel, what is the over-under? The Rodgers retires October 13th after Myles Garrett folds him in half.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, if he gets him, it could be a rough one. It could be a rough one. I'll say this. If the offensive line is good, the Steelers offense should be pretty okay. You know, the Jets offensive line was not good, and the Steelers offensive line was not good by the end of last season, but I'm hoping that they're good this year. You know, they have the pieces. They've done they've built the foundation. Now it's just a matter of, can it actually work? You know, we'll see if it does. Broderick Jones versus Myles Garrett is
That's the matchup.
yeah, it's scary. It's
Yeah,
definitely
it's a real concern. I understand that, Miguel. I understand that.
Yeah. American Steel from a beach in Mexico with a beer, with one being a double revenge game. Who has a better stat line, Aaron Rodgers or Justin Fields? And what is your prediction? I'm going to be really honest. Okay. I think the Jets are such a bad organization that they are not going to just suddenly be good again. Like they're the Jets, guys. They're the Jets. When was the last time you looked at the Jets and said, good team they got there. Good one. You know, was it when they drafted Zach Wilson second 4 years ago? No, they've been an awful team forever. So if I had to guess, I'm going Aaron Rodgers has the better game. Steelers win that one on the road. That doesn't really surprise me. And look, I wish nothing but the best for Justin Fields. I don't think he has a bad game, but I certainly don't think the Jets are a Super Bowl team, you know, after one off season. I don't.
Yeah, agreed. I think the one thing that sticks out is that the Steelers historically struggle with quarterbacks that can move out of the pocket and make their own plays from there. So I could easily see Justin, having 50 yards on the ground, maybe a touchdown or something like that, and like having an impressive stat line like he tends to do when he plays. But yeah, I think it Rodgers probably has a better overall, a quarterback game in quotes.
Yes, I agree. Rec 7 here. Jacob, you hit the nail on the head with Juan. Wide receiver options nobody's thinking of. Give me Xavier Legette and Andre. I'm not even going to try it. Xavier Legette is only a second-year wide receiver. You have to rule out second-year wide receivers. Those guys aren't on the market. They're almost never on the market. Even if they're bad, teams don't usually move on from them that early. They give them an opportunity. So Xavier Legette would be awesome. But no, I don't. I'm missing on the second guy somewhere. I am definitely missing on him. You're looking him up. I could see it.
I am, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I think more names. The big thing is more names are going to emerge over the coming week, closer to training camp. First week, second week of training camp, it's going to be a whole different wide receiver market that's available for anybody, to be totally honest.
Yeah. I would love Xavier Legette just because every time I've seen him speak in Carolina, I'm like, this guy seems like the nicest human being in the absolute world.
Yes.
So that'd be sick.
Did you see this other guy and Drake?
Yeah, he plays for the Bengals, and Rex 7, I literally had no idea who this person was until you told me this name. So genuinely apologize to everyone listening to me BS right now. But 479 receiving yards last year and 6
Not
touchdowns.
Terrible. Second year guy?
This is his third year.
Third year. Okay, so he's an option. Second year guys are not available. Like everybody always tosses second year guys out there. They're just guys. Teams aren't looking to give up on second year guys. They're too cheap. The wide receivers have potential. You just never know. Traylon Burks is a great example of that one. I mean, not bad. You're paying a premium though to trade with Cincinnati. You're paying an AFC North tax that I don't think anybody wants.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody wants.
A lot to like there. 6'3", 25 years old. I get it.
Yeah, I do get
the intrigue.
I do get it. Alexander, only chance Steelers get into the Super Bowl is if Lamar, Allen, and Mahomes get injured. Yes or no? I would say, I wouldn't say a definite yes. I would say that's the hardest task is to overcome those three. But I do think that if you told me the Steelers have to get through that with Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, or Aaron Rodgers, I'd say, well, Aaron's the only one that could really potentially ever get you through that. So I do feel better about it today. I don't feel great about it, but I do feel better about it today than I felt about it 24 hours ago.
Yeah, I think the answer to this question is yes. I think they would something has to. I agree with the general sentiment that this team is better with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback. I will certainly stand by that until proven otherwise when the season begins. But yeah, that still does not show me enough. That doesn't make me beyond maybe like 30% confident that they could get past, one, maybe two of those quarterbacks in the playoffs. I just think Lamar and Mahomes and Allen are just they're too imposing, and they're still that much better than even Aaron Rodgers is, and their capabilities exceed that of what I think Aaron Rodgers can bring to the Steelers this year. So yeah, they'd have to have some other things, break in their favor in order to get to the Super Bowl. But Rodgers does make it a little bit more likely. I
A little
100% agree.
it gives them a shot,
Yeah.
gives them a shot in the dark. Maybe something happens. Maddie, what do you think Rodgers brings to the table that could elevate our team? Will more throwing be involved? Will him and Arthur Smith get along? And then she also asked if he'll have a press conference today. I don't believe he'll have a press conference today. I
Okay.
have not heard anything. Usually they give me a bit of a heads up. I would imagine it's Tuesday. Just makes it easy. Everybody's going to be there anyways. He's going to talk Tuesday. What does he bring to the table? I think he brings a stronger arm than anybody they have here. He brings 15, 16 years of experience in the NFL, a Super Bowl, 4 MVPs. I mean, and from everything I've heard, I have never once heard a player outside of Mike Williams who doesn't like Aaron Rodgers. I've never once heard of a player outside of Mike Williams who doesn't like Aaron Rodgers. So I think he brings a great locker room presence. Obviously, he brings some distractions, but inside the locker room, I've heard nothing but great things. So I think he brings all that stuff. I don't know if throwing will be more involved. I still think this is going to be a pass-heavy offense. That's the sentiment the Steelers have given Aaron this entire time is you are not coming to be the savior. You are coming to just be our quarterback, and we need a good quarterback, and we think you're that quarterback. That's a great place to be. I still think they're going to run the ball more, and I do expect him and Arthur Smith to get along. I don't know all the details of Russ, but I don't look at Arthur Smith as a guy that just has problems with everybody.
Here's one thing that Aaron Rodgers has historically done as well. He gets the ball out
Yes.
quick as hell.
Yes.
Like when he even with offensive lines that struggled, in Green Bay, he did have good offensive line, when they won their Super Bowl and a couple years after, but it certainly was not the case for his entire tenure in Green Bay. They were constantly sort of filtering through different players, but he consistently was like, get the ball out in under 2.4 seconds, 2.3 seconds, like from, collapse pockets. He was under 2 a lot of times in clean pocket situations. So like, I think that Aaron Rodgers, especially if the offensive line is still a question mark, we're all very confident that it's going to take a big step. I've been ringing that bell certainly, but if it doesn't, if Broderick Jones struggles against a Myles Garrett, the one thing that Aaron Rodgers brings that I am more confident in than Russell Wilson and Justin Fields is eluding sacks because he can get the ball out on time and accurately. That is something that the Steelers have not had for the past few years. So if he can still do that, I don't need him to be MVP Aaron Rodgers. I need him to get the ball out fast as he can and accurately. So yeah, if he does that, then great. I think
agree.
that's what he's. So yeah, that's something that I'm going to look for, see how much that's continuing from the past couple of years and seeing if he can bring that to Pittsburgh.
I agree. TBD Enigma. I'm so excited to see what this name turns into. Aaron Rodgers can unlock Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson's potential. I think any good quarterback could. I'm excited to see a quarterback. That was the thing with Justin last year was the offense limited him, and with Russ, he limited the offense. And I don't know if Aaron's going to do more or less or the same, but I think the last couple of games last season gives me hope that there's a chance that Aaron Rodgers is able to utilize his wide receivers a little bit more for sure. And I'm rooting for Calvin Austin, man. That is one of the best dudes.
Yep.
One of the best dudes I know. All right. We'll finish it off with a couple of speed rounds here. Walter Gruden. So what was the odds that DK and Aaron Rodgers were working out the last 2 weeks? DK was not in Pittsburgh. I'll let you answer that one. You think that they were sneaking around doing some workouts over in Malibu in between his podcast appearances?
Sure. I think it's possible. I don't think that was exactly what was happening in these last couple of weeks that they were not in Pittsburgh. But I mean, we saw them earlier in the offseason just kind of playing a little bit of catch. So like I think there was a lot of talking going on. I think there was a lot of, call it recruiting, team bonding, call it whatever you want. I think there was probably some camaraderie building happening between these two new players for the Steelers. But yeah, I don't think they were just like hanging out, slinging the ball back and forth the past couple of weeks. But that can start next week.
It will start next week. But yeah, no, usually this is the time where people go on vacations. I don't understand players go on vacations during OTAs instead of the week after minicamp when you have a month to do nothing, but most guys go on vacation this time of year. Vic, Noah, do you think that there could be a quarterback battle between Mason Rudolph and Will Howard? I do not. I firmly expect Will Howard to be the quarterback 4 heading into training camp. He will at some point move into quarterback 3 as long as he plays well, but he will never move into quarterback 2. I do not believe this season Will Howard will get an opportunity to be quarterback 2. It just doesn't. It's not a part of the Steelers' plan. Like, just from everything I've been told, everything that I've seen, Will Howard is the bottom of the depth chart, and he's got to fight his way to QB3 and which he's going to make the roster. But right now they're going to make him earn that. I don't think he gets a shot at quarterback 2. Do you?
Yeah, I think it's very, very unlikely. I think he does earn emphatically the 3rd spot, and I think they are going to make him work for it. But that's what they like to do. They like to make their rookies like really, truly earn it, and show what you can, and not only be better, than the next guy, but probably be better than 2 guys up from you before you move up 1 spot. It's a difficult ladder to climb when you're a new player in the league like that. So, but yeah, I think he's going to be fine. But don't expect him to be taking snaps under center this year for the Steelers in the regular season.
No,
unless injuries occur.
Yeah, if Joey Porter Jr. and everybody else had to earn their place, so does Will Howard. Will Howard. Lance, hey, Noah, do you think that he signed back when he visited and they agreed to keep it quiet until minicamp? No. I can tell you right now, the Steelers were confident, but there was nothing more than confidence this entire time. I have spoke to people almost every other day on this situation. I've had more phone calls. If you go through, I'm not a person who like leaves texts on my phone, like I hate that. I hate when it says, oh, you have 7 texts. I have 320 text messages on my phone right now because I have ignored literally anybody who is not texting me about Aaron Rodgers for 3 months. That's what we've done. So I don't think they've been hiding it unless everybody's been lied to this entire time. But no, I think that it happened the way it did. And then we'll finish it off. Oh, go ahead. You got thoughts?
No, I was gonna say it would be someone would have found it. Like someone would have found out something, and there would have been something to tip off that a contract had actually been signed. I bet a handshake agreement was done earlier or something like that, or like they were so confident from different conversations.
I'm telling you, it was not.
I believe you. You're more informed on this than I am.
It was not. It was to the point where I won't tell you when. I can't give details, but at some point I had a conversation, not with a source, but with somebody that is a prominent figure in Pittsburgh that, like everybody watches. It's not Mike Tomlin. I'm not giving names, but everybody watches this guy closely and everything he does. And at one point we're sitting there talking and I was like, you guys, like, do you at least know that he's coming or something? And he said, man, I think I know less than you. I said, that's wild. That is wild. So, I'm telling you, dude, I'm telling you, they were pretty certain that it was going to happen, but there was never a handshake agreement. It was always Aaron had informed them that this is the timeline he's going off of. And I think that's where maybe a handshake something came into place where it was like, okay, we have to wait until this date. And if we don't get an answer on this date, then we could start thinking it's not going to happen, But outside of a time range, like that, I'm telling you, the panic in some people's voices, the pissed offness in some people's voice. I got a phone call once that it started with like, are the fans as like, are they starting to lose it on him? And I was like, oh yeah. And he's like, the response I got was, yeah, to be honest with you, like people are starting to get nervous that he's going to just like piss way too many people off in this situation. And it's like, yeah, we're drawing the line, pal. We're getting real close to it. So I just like, maybe like him and Mike T had something, but
Sure.
I think that's
Yeah.
for all.
There was no contract signed until it gets signed today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If people knew, it was like maybe one person.
Mhm.
I'll tell you that. And then we'll finish it off with this one. When is the best time to attend training camp for 3 days? It is the first week is Thursday, Friday, Saturday. The second week it begins pads. So the second week, show up to the first day, second week. It's the best day that there is. Backs on backers. That's where the physicality starts. That's when I would start. The next 2 days are kind of hit and miss. Maybe they'll be in pads, maybe they won't. But the rest of training camp is a hit or miss. Some days they're in pads, some days they're not. You're guaranteed to see pads that first Monday is the best day to be at training camp. It's when the juices are. That's when it's fun. That's when it's fun.
Electric.
Right. Electric. With that said, we're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. Please go give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and hit download all. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. With that said, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.